here in Washington and New York. Welcome to the Foreign Press Centers. My name is Benjamin Weber. I'm the director, and I'm very pleased today to welcome you to our briefing. We have the State Department's Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for Energy Transformation, Dr. Griffin Thompson, and the Department of Energy's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Renewable Power, Dr. Timothy Unruh. They'll be giving us a briefing today on the United States' continuing support for renewable energy and energy efficiency technologies as a vital part of the United States' all-of-the-above approach to energy. I think many of you may have seen the President's remarks yesterday speaking to our energy policy, and this is another very important component of that policy. Without further ado, I'll turn it over, please, to Dr. Thompson to begin.
Well, thank you very much, Benjamin, and thank you for hosting this today, and welcome all the foreign journalists in the audience today. As many of you are aware, this week is Energy Week for the administration, and over the past several days, the President, Secretary Perry, and Secretary Zinke and other top administration officials have affirmed our commitment to utilizing all of the United States' abundant domestic energy resources for good, both here and abroad. Now, the other administration officials have done more than an adequate job on advocating their views on the utility of increasing use of nuclear, coal, and natural gas. Our focus here, as Benjamin said, is on renewable energy. And as part of our all-of-the-above energy strategy, we reaffirm our commitment to renewable energy and all clean energy technologies. Now, as we move into the second half of 2017, it's safe to say that renewable energy, along with natural gas and nuclear, is a key component of the modern electricity system. The market for renewable energy technologies is vast, it is global, and it is growing rapidly. In 2015, we saw investment in renewables reach an unprecedented level of investment. Some $349 billion supported 147 gigawatts globally of new renewable generation capacity, the largest annual increase ever. This was the first year that renewable energy investment surpassed investment in all other forms of energy production. The next year in 2016 saw more of the same. However, because of dramatically declining prices, we were able to buy more for less money. A dollar of investment in 2016 went 33% further than in the year previous, with $288 billion supporting 161 gigawatts of new capacity. And according to Blackstone, the world's largest asset management company, renewable energy was the single largest source of new infrastructure investment over the past 2 years. Now, many pundits have attributed the dramatic increase in renewable energy to the Paris Agreement and the mitigation efforts on climate change. And they're absolutely correct. There is a linkage between renewable energy market dynamics and climate change. But unfortunately, they have the relationship, the causal relationship, backwards. The Paris Agreement was possible largely because of the dramatically decreasing prices in renewable energy, which made renewable energy adoption and the increased use of renewable energy, a low carbon, zero carbon emitting technologies, to take hold, and those investment trends continue. So what I'd like to do in the few minutes that I have remaining is talk about what are the dynamics that are moving the renewable energy markets forward. The first is technological advances. The United States leads the world in R&D investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency. And over the last 5 years, we've seen dramatic decreases in the cost of solar, wind across the board, to the point where wind turbines and solar panels are now cost effective, and in many cases, in some cases, certainly competitive with power generated by either coal or gas. At this point, the trend is undeniable. The banks have made their case, the markets have spoken. Renewable energy is a trend that will continue to endure. The second reason that is motivating and increasing the embrace of renewable energy is energy security. All too often, we've seen energy used as a geopolitical weapon, with major suppliers seeking to exert geopolitical leverage over their consumers. One need only look to Russia's use of its natural gas supply to Ukraine and Europe, as well as looking at Venezuela and its petrodiplomacy to gain political influence in the Caribbean basin to see the impacts that energy vulnerability has. And of course, the only way to combat these vulnerabilities is through a diversified energy portfolio. The diverse energy portfolio, using the entire matrix of energy supplies, all of the above strategy, is a more secure energy portfolio. And renewables and efficiency are certainly a key component in increasing the diversity of energy portfolios and therefore ensuring security home and in the region. Another reason why renewable energy markets are expanding rapidly is energy access. Over 1 billion people in the world today lack access to energy services. Many of these people live in remote areas. In fact, 90% of those without energy access live in remote areas. And if we were to rely on conventional fuel sources, that 90% of 1,900,000,000 folks would never receive energy services. So we see an increase in a diversity and plurality of business models, finance models, reaching the rural unelectrified. And we are seeing a boom in solar home systems, small wind, as well as mini-grid systems around the world. In fact, in 2016, we saw renewable mini-grid markets balloon up to $200 billion market. That's a sizable economic market. Advances in battery storage are also helping this boom to increase access to modern energy services. Since 2010, lithium-ion battery storage systems have seen costs fall a full 75%. And we're seeing large bids in utility-size storage systems in both Hawaii and utility. The International Renewable Energy Agency predicts that in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see improvements in energy storage that'll match the remarkable growth we've seen in renewable energy, specifically in the solar PV industry. And industry understands this as well, if not better, than governments. We've seen a huge spike in corporate procurements. We see corporations after corporations, large companies around the world, dozens and dozens and dozens of companies committing to 100% renewable energy portfolio. And they do this for a number of reasons. It used to be where companies would adopt renewable energy out of a sense of corporate sustainability and corporate responsibility. Now it's the business case. Whether companies are manufacturing footwear or apparel or maintaining computer server farms in locations around the world, they want the security of supply and to lock in the price of a long-term energy system as rather than being susceptible to the fluctuations and the volatility of conventional fuel prices. And all of this public and private investment translates into jobs. As Secretary Perry wrote recently in an op-ed, the United States is a world leader in renewable energy and energy technologies. And so tapping into our full energy potential will lead to robust job growth in every sector of our economy. In the U.S., clean energy, and by this I mean renewable energy, smart grid and storage and efficiency employs almost 3 million people. And focusing just on the power sector, clean energy employs almost 600,000 Americans. And these opportunities are growing. The U.S. solar workforce increased by 25% in 2016, with the wind employment increasing by 32%. Our Bureau of Labor Statistics identified a wind turbine technician as the fastest growing labor category in the United States. From retail to manufacturing, we can bring jobs back to America while continuing to improve our environment with cleaner fuels and technologies. And the pace will only increase. Bloomberg New Energy Finance projects that building new wind and solar projects will become cheaper than operating existing fossil fuel plants by the end of the next decade. So it is clear that we are far beyond the point of being green means going into the red. This is a profitable enterprise for producers and consumers. In fact, the International Energy Agency projects that renewables will account for 2/3 of all power generation investment from now until 2040. That's more than $7 trillion market potential over the next 23 years. Much of this market lies outside the United States, and much of it in developing countries. As the President said yesterday, we're in the cusp, we're in the middle of an energy revolution. So the $7 trillion question is, what are we going to do to help our companies at home exploit and take advantage of the $7 trillion market overseas? Well, let me talk a little bit now about what the State Department does. The U.S. State Department's Bureau of Energy Resources leads coordinated U.S. government efforts to encourage adoption and implementation of clean energy technologies, to improve energy security and to promote energy access, and to catalyze economic prosperity. Through our bilateral, multilateral, and regional programs, we work with countries to provide the institutional scaffolding, the new policies and regulatory structures that are required to accelerate private sector investment, leverage public monies with private monies, and to increase the adoption of renewable energy and energy efficiency technologies at home. We do this through a number of programs working from the cities all the way up to the international multilateral levels. And let me give you a flavor of just a few of the programs where I think are clear examples of kind of the work the State Department does. For the last 2 or 3 years, we have chaired in the Energy Bureau the U.S.-India Clean Energy Finance Task Force, where we sit down with counterparts in India to look at what are the financial instruments, what are the policy and regulatory structures that India can adopt to increase private sector investment, both from the U.S. and abroad, to tap into their $1.2 trillion power sector market. We share the experiences. Countries come to us to learn what the United States has done. As Deputy Assistant Secretary Unruh will talk a little bit in a moment, we have done an incredible amount of success, achieved great success here in the United States, and countries want to replicate what we've done, learn from our leadership. One case, an additional case, is Israel. Israel came to us last year wanting to get our advice and expertise and guidance on how they can transition from a heavily fossil fuel economy to one that balances renewable energy with natural gas. Again, they've seen what we have achieved at home and they want to replicate that. I was in Israel just last week, where we held the 4th meeting of the U.S. Clean Energy Finance Task Force, and we're getting our experts together with their experts to share technical policy and financial experience as to how to catalyze market forces to renewable energy. The day after that task force, we inaugurated, the State Department, along with the Palestinian Authority, the U.S.-Palestinian Energy Dialogue, where we are working with the Palestinians on talking about how do you integrate renewable energy and efficiency into their burgeoning energy system. They now have the responsibility for the transmission distribution of energy services in Palestine. And what we're trying to do is get them to think more broadly, to realize energy is much more than electrons racing through wires or molecules moving through pipelines. We're looking at the social-political constructs and the institutional scaffolding that is required to increase the provision of energy services. We're also working with Morocco on the U.S.-Morocco Strategic Energy Working Group to try to inject the innovation ethos that we have found so prevalent here in the United States into the Moroccan environment so they can start innovating renewable energy systems as we have here in the United States. We also are working with African utilities, because we see that the African utilities are facing a huge challenge, not only in access, but on security. And so we're working with the Edison Electric Institute to look at how our CEOs of our major utilities, the best utilities in the world, can work with African utilities to talk about issues of cybersecurity, economic prosperity, and a more diversified energy portfolio. On China, we're working with China on the institutional frameworks and policies to foster a competitive, transparent, and an environmentally sustainable power system in China. The cooperation promotes market-based mechanisms and incentives for integrating renewable energy into their system, again, based on the practical experience and the know-how that we have accumulated here in the United States, from the cities to the states to the federal government. So through these programs, we seek to partner with key countries to accelerate and enhance existing global trends. The factors that drive these trends, again, technology innovation, economic prosperity, and domestic and regional security. Those are the forces that are driving renewable energy. The revolution is afoot, and we at the State Department are working with other countries to promote mutually beneficial programs, policies, and projects. So now on the domestic side of what the United States is doing on renewable energy, I turn it over to Dr. Unruh.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. You are right. This is a $7 trillion question, and it's one that the Department of Energy was established to help answer. On October 1 of this year, the department will turn 40 years old. It's our 40th birthday. And the drivers that Dr. Thompson mentioned, new technology, energy security, independence, energy access, those are today's version of the reason that the department was actually established back in 1977. The drive for the United States to be self-sufficient in its need for energy has spurred the development of new technologies that have only recently become significant players in energy markets around the world. Technologies like those for solar and wind, they're available today based on last 20, 30, or even more years of research and development and concerted efforts from industry, academia, national laboratories, and all forms of government. This has created lasting partnerships, deep expertise, and unstoppable momentum that we will need to continue to build upon. I'd like to just touch on a few of the things that I think lead to that. The first way is that we work closely with American industry, which we believe is the engine of our economy. We need to make sure that the advances in technology supported by the Department of Energy are easily accessible and available to companies to turn into the next innovative product driving that technology. I want to stress that this includes both established market players and small, ambitious startups with potentially disruptive ideas. Programs like the Wave Energy Prize, which is managed by our Water Power program, broaden the horizon of what organizations can do with these new technologies. In this case, a company gathered a device to do wave energy conversion, which generates electricity from the motion of waves, which is one of the newest types of renewable energy that there is, called marine hydrokinetic. 92 teams registered for the Wave Energy Prize from all over the country, pursuing the challenge to double the performance of the wave energy capture devices that we knew of. The eventual prize winner, called Aqua Harmonics, far exceeded that. They were able to hit 5 times expected performance, and the company started only 5 years ago in a garage. We hear similar stories from the department's small business programs, which are run by the Office of Science and Research, funded by offices across the Department of Energy, regularly appear on R&D Magazine's annual R&D 100 award list, which includes 32 just last year in 2016. Many of those awards are partnerships between industry and the Department of Energy's national labs, which is my next topic. The national labs are world-class research institutions and a unique national resource at the forefront of energy innovation. They house world-leading research capabilities from particle accelerators, supercomputers and testing capabilities, and many labs are closely affiliated with top research universities, and these labs also contain world-class facilities. In this way, the national laboratories are perfectly positioned to connect scientific capabilities with industry needs and to involve the next generation of energy sector scientists and engineers. Facilities like the National Wind Technology Center in Colorado have allowed early versions of wind turbines and technologies currently on the market to be tested, researched, and to be focused, and performance to be validated. And this is a site that is poised to grow and develop into a regional renewable test center. By connecting American innovators with these assets, we provide businesses too small to develop capabilities on their own access to the means to compete. And programs like the Small Business Vouchers allow more of them to access those capabilities by awarding the best applicants with small grants to model, test, and validate innovative concepts. Finally, I want to highlight the incredible work being done by the U.S. states, cities, and local communities. States like New York aren't just moving forward, they're accelerating. New York is empowering its consumers, including a community in Brooklyn where residents are using their rooftop solar panels to provide power to their neighbors directly. In New Mexico, McKinley County joined a pilot of the local energy efficiency performance program to relieve stress on its county budget. The county retrofitted more than 40 of its buildings, from heating and cooling systems to water heaters, lighting and control systems, and reduced its operating costs by 30%, about $350,000 per year. Programs like these are being implemented across the United States are a testament to demand for affordable, cleaner energy. As is the case around the world, American consumers and businesses are eager to share in the growing clean energy industry. The United States is blessed with a world-class capacity for innovation, world-leading research institutions, and a uniquely American entrepreneurial culture. Our companies are poised to produce the next generation of energy technologies. Our businesses, large and small, are eager to bring them to market, and our communities will continue to take advantage of them. The Department of Energy, as it has for 40 years, is ready to support our businesses as they push to the head of the growing global clean energy industry.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Unruh. We'll open it for questions, and I think we'll follow our usual pattern. We'll take two here in Washington, then we'll offer New York a chance to speak. And I think we can have time probably to do 2 rounds of questions in both venues. Please wait. Sorry, I should have said wait for the mic, because that way New York will be able to hear you as well.
Okay. Sound? Okay, thank you. I want to know how about the clean power plan? Does it will be cancelled at last?
I didn't understand the question quite.
The clean power plan.
The clean power plan.
Yeah. Will it be cancelled at last?
Well, I don't know the plans of the administration on what they want to do with the Clean Power Plan, but the efforts that surround the Clean Power Plan are things that we are doing, have been doing, and will continue doing. With or without that structure, we will continue to move forward and make the efforts happen and make clean power happen, develop our renewable energy, and make sure that it gets out in the businesses so that products can be created.
Yeah, and another question is, between the environmental and economic, so how to balance it? And you know, the Trump administration, from his policy, we know is a big opportunity for the traditional energy, but the competence between the traditional energy and the renewable energy. So I mean, what's the opportunity for the renewable energy?
I think the question is, given that the policy announced by the President talks a lot about traditional energy, what is the opportunity for the new technologies and the new energy types?
That's a very good question. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. As this administration has repeatedly articulated, we embrace an all-the-above strategy. And energy is very site-specific, and some countries have an abundance of hydrocarbons, and they can utilize those hydrocarbons in a cost-effective way. And increasingly, we're seeing a decarbonizing trend. But the other countries are not blessed with hydrocarbon resources, and therefore they will want to take advantage of the energy resources that they have. So we're seeing market demand is pulling in one direction, and we're seeing this administration articulate time and time again, renewable energy and energy efficiency is very much in the mix. What they're trying to do, as we've seen in statements of the past, is balance the scales and make sure that the entire spectrum, the entire suite of technologies and fuel sources are utilized in order to address the fundamental goals of economic security, domestic security, and prosperity. The markets have spoken, and we see where the investments are going, and we're seeing an increased balance between the two. Last year, globally, 50% of the newly installed capacity went to renewable energy. So we're seeing a very good balance there. 60% last year in the United States of installed capacity was renewable energy. So we're seeing, again, the quest for portfolio diversification, and portfolio diversification balancing natural gas, nuclear, coal, renewable energy as the most secure energy portfolio.
So if I could speak more, what we also see the opportunity is to better understand how all these different types of energies integrate with one another. Clearly, the renewable energy of today is a different type of energy source than what we've had in the past. It's one that we have a pretty good understanding on, but we don't have a complete understanding on. And so we in the Department of Energy have a grid modernization initiative to try to figure out how do we best integrate these things to make them all work together, because we believe they all have a future and they all play an important part of making sure that a country has a sound, secure energy system. The administration has been clear in its intent that we still believe that clean water, clean air are very important, but we also recognize the need to balance our needs, and economics play a part, integration plays a part, environment plays a part, and they all have a place to play in the future grid and the energy supply of the nation.
We'll check with New York. Is there a question at that end? Okay, final questions here in Washington.
Thank you. First, thank you for the briefing. And just now, Dr. Thompson introduced some international practice regarding the renewable energy with some other countries. And also you mentioned China. So my question is that, in your opinion, are there some further potential between U.S. and China for the renewable energy in future? Thank you so much.
Yes, what we find is partnerships with other countries, be them developed countries or developing countries. Dr. Unruh pointed to the topic of grid modernization. This is perhaps electricity grid modernization is the organizing principle in the 21st century for electricity service delivery. Every country is experimenting with creating the utility model of the 21st century. And the United States loves to work with other countries because by doing so, we not only share our experiences, but we learn from other countries. And that's in evidence with our cooperation and collaboration with China. Every country has a unique portfolio, a unique mix. All are trying to increase the reliability and the cost effectiveness of their electricity systems. We have 50 states in the United States, and I think for all the foreign journalists there, I think a mistake that's often made is we often look at Washington, D.C. for our energy policies, ignoring, as Dr. Unruh quite accurately pointed out, the incredible amount of work being done at the states and locals. Our founding fathers gave us a federal system of government with different spheres of authority. Federal government has responsibilities, but especially in electricity, states and local governments have a tremendous amount of authority. Chief Justice Brandeis years ago talked about the United States as having 50 laboratories of democracy. Well, there are in fact 50 states, 50 laboratories of experimentation. So what we do when we work with China or other countries is bring this collective experimentation of success and failure and work with colleagues such as China to learn collectively and together how do we move into the 21st century where we have a more secure energy electricity system, a more prosperous energy service provision, and a more sound and prosperous job creation energy sector for us and for other countries. So we are very encouraged by the collaboration we have with China on renewable energy and grid stabilization, and I know the Department of Energy has a number of other programs with China on other technologies and other fossil fuel sources.
Yeah, from the Department of Energy standpoint, we have collaborations. We have one in China coming up in July with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. What we want to do is we want to try to bring our manufacturers together with the Chinese government and help them understand how they can better collaborate and how that technology developed in the United States can be brought into China. We want to create jobs and opportunity for our industries here in the country. And so this is one way we do that. We see across the world that opportunity exists. As you mentioned, talking about the states, I want to point out that our cities are some of the most innovative things we have across the country. The urban areas tend to really want to drive for a renewable base and try to work on their emissions and reduce those as much as possible. So we see cities as some of the leaders in some of the innovation in some of the policies we have in the United States.
Last question down here in Washington. No, then I'll ask you to join me in thanking our speakers today for an excellent briefing. And we'll ask you to join us again here at the Foreign Press Center for future briefings on this topic and others. Thank you very much.